What if I told you that Feng Shui was not always welcomed in history? In fact, there were times when rulers feared it so much, they tried to ban it completely. Imagine this, an emperor sitting on his golden throne, worried not about armies or enemies, but about a man with a compass, reading the land, aligning homes and tombs. Why would a simple practice of arranging space strike fear in the hearts of the most powerful men in the world? Tonight, let's journey back through the hidden history of Feng Shui. Not the peaceful art you may have heard about, but the forbidden side, when it was seen as dangerous, threatening, and even punishable by law. Long before bans and restrictions, Feng Shui was deeply tied to power. As early as the Zhou dynasty, around 1046 BCE, rulers built palaces, cities, and tombs following Feng Shui principles. Mountains behind them for protection, rivers in front for life. The dragon's breath, or qi, flowing through the land. It wasn't just decoration, it was a declaration. This is where heaven and earth meet. This is the seat of power. By the time of the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE, Feng Shui masters were not just consulted, they were feared. A skilled master could predict prosperity or ruin simply by reading the land. For an emperor, this was both a blessing and a curse. Why? Because Feng Shui was not only about wealth and harmony, it was about legitimacy. If the people believed a rival warlord had chosen land blessed with the perfect qi, his claim to rule could suddenly feel divine. And for emperors, nothing was more dangerous than a rival who looked chosen by heaven. This was the seed of fear, the beginning of the forbidden story. As dynasties rose and fell, one truth became clear. Feng Shui was more than a personal practice. It was political power. By the Eastern Han period, 25 to 220 CE, stories spread of generals and warlords secretly hiring Feng Shui masters to find the most auspicious land. Not for homes, but for graves. Because in Chinese belief, the placement of an ancestor's tomb could bless generations to come. This frightened emperors. If a rival family buried their ancestors on a land with strong dragon veins, it was believed their descendants would rise in power, maybe even overthrow the throne. One tale from the Three Kingdoms era, 220 to 280 CE, tells of warlords battling not just on the battlefield, but over sacred landscapes. Controlling mountains, rivers, and burial grounds became just as important as controlling armies. And so, emperors began to fear Feng Shui, not because it was false, but because too many people believed it was true. A single prediction, whispered by a master, could spark rebellion or weaken loyalty. Feng Shui had crossed a line. It was no longer just about harmony with nature. It was about who deserved to rule under heaven's mandate. By the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, Feng Shui had blossomed into a respected science. Masters roamed the empire, advising not only emperors, but also merchants, monks, and commoners. Temples were aligned with cosmic order. Cities were mapped according to the flow of rivers and mountains. Even the great capital, Chang'an, was designed with Feng Shui principles in mind. This was Feng Shui's golden age. But beneath the surface, the rulers kept a watchful eye. You see, Tang emperors encouraged Feng Shui for imperial projects, but they worried about common people using it too freely. Imagine, if every wealthy family hired a master to align their tombs perfectly, their descendants might gain fortune, influence, and power, perhaps too much for the emperor's comfort. The fear only grew during the Song Dynasty, 960 to 1279 CE. This was when Feng Shui texts became more widespread, and knowledge no longer stayed in the hands of a few elites. Ordinary families began consulting masters, hoping to secure a brighter destiny. But the rulers saw a problem. Too many families empowered by Feng Shui meant too many potential rivals. So while the art flourished, restrictions quietly appeared. Some texts were limited, some practices were monitored. Feng Shui was praised in the open, but controlled in the shadows. It was a strange balance, a golden age shining on the surface, yet underneath, the seeds of censorship were already being planted. When the Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644 CE, came to power, Feng Shui had already spread far and wide. From peasants in the countryside to wealthy merchants in the cities, everyone wanted to secure the dragon's breath for their homes and tombs. But this rise worried the throne. The Ming rulers, especially the early emperors, feared that too much belief in Feng Shui would weaken loyalty to the state. If a family believed their tomb site guaranteed them wealth and power, why would they bow to imperial authority? And so, a darker chapter began. Historical records tell us that some Ming emperors outright banned Feng Shui for commoners. In fact, it was even written into law. Anyone caught practicing without permission could be punished. Masters risked exile, or worse, their books could be burned. Their tools could be destroyed. Yet, ironically, while commoners were punished, the imperial court itself continued to use Feng Shui in secret. Palaces, temples, and even the Forbidden City were carefully aligned to cosmic patterns. The rulers denied the practice in public, but relied on it in private. This hypocrisy created a hidden world, an art that was both forbidden and indispensable. People still whispered, still consulted masters in secret, because for them, Feng Shui was not just superstition, it was survival. And the more it was suppressed, the more mysterious, powerful, and untouchable it became. When the Qing Dynasty, 1644 to 1912 CE, took over, they inherited not only an empire, but also the fear of Feng Shui. By this time, its influence had become so deep that rulers treated it almost like a political threat. The Qing emperors made their stance clear. Feng Shui was illegal for the masses. Laws were written banning commoners from hiring geomancers. Punishments included heavy fines, public humiliation, and even exile. Officials declared it superstition, a dangerous distraction from loyalty to the throne. But here's the irony once again. The Qing court itself quietly used Feng Shui. The layout of Beijing under Qing planning still followed cosmic order. Imperial tombs were chosen only after masters confirmed the flow of dragon veins. Even the summer palace, with its lakes and mountains, was arranged for harmony and power. Meanwhile, among the people, Feng Shui refused to die. Families continued to pass down secret knowledge. Masters disguised themselves as fortune tellers or herbalists to avoid punishment. Rural villages would pool resources to quietly hire a Feng Shui expert, risking everything for the hope of blessings. Then came the 19th century, when Western missionaries and scholars arrived in China. They wrote about this mysterious practice called Feng Shui, sometimes mocking it, sometimes fascinated. Ironically, while the Qing tried to erase it, foreigners began recording it, ensuring that the art would survive into modern times. The Qing dynasty ended in 1912, but Feng Shui did not end with it. Instead, it slipped underground, waiting for a new era to rise again. With the fall of the Qing dynasty in 1912, China entered an age of change. Warlords, revolutions, and foreign powers all pulled the nation in different directions. Through it all, Feng Shui continued, but often in the shadows. In Hong Kong, under British rule, Feng Shui quietly thrived. Merchants hired masters to choose shop locations. Bankers arranged offices for prosperity. And even modern skyscrapers were subtly designed with Feng Shui principles. Some of the most famous buildings in Hong Kong still carry this influence today. But in mainland China, the 20th century brought harsher challenges. During the Cultural Revolution, 1966 to 1976, Mao Zedong declared war on all superstitions. Temples were destroyed, masters were persecuted, and Feng Shui books were burned. Publicly, it seemed the art was wiped away. Yet, once again, Feng Shui refused to vanish. Families continued to practice in secret, passing knowledge quietly through generations. In villages, elders still taught where to build a home, where to place a grave, how to balance with the land. Then, as China opened its doors in the 1980s, something surprising happened. Feng Shui re-emerged, not just in China, but around the world. Suddenly, Western designers, architects, and ordinary families became fascinated by this ancient Chinese art. From New York to London, people were arranging their homes and gardens by Feng Shui rules. What emperors once feared, the world now embraced. An art that had been censored, banned, and ridiculed had become a global phenomenon. Today, Feng Shui stands at a unique point in history. What was once hidden in mountains, whispered in villages, and banned by emperors, is now openly practiced in homes, businesses, and even cities across the world. In China, it has regained quiet respect. While it is still not officially taught in schools, many people, rich and poor alike, consult Feng Shui masters for major decisions. Skyscrapers in Shanghai, Beijing, and Hong Kong still follow invisible lines of energy. Even billion-dollar companies will secretly consider Feng Shui before building. In the West, it has taken on a new life. Some see it as design, some as psychology, and others as spirituality. From arranging furniture for peace of mind to designing eco-friendly buildings, Feng Shui has evolved into a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern living. What makes Feng Shui so powerful is not just its rules or symbols. It's the reminder that we are deeply connected to our environment. Where we live, how we arrange our space, how we honor the land, it all affects our spirit, our health, and even our success. The emperors once tried to ban it because they feared its power. Yet here we are, in the 21st century, still talking about it, still practicing it. So perhaps the real secret is this: Feng Shui has survived because it touches something universal in all of us: the need for harmony, the search for balance, the desire to feel at home not just in our houses, but in the world. And that is why the story of Feng Shui is not just history. It is a living tradition, one that continues to shape our future, just as it shaped our past. What do you think about this hidden secret? Let me hear you in comment section. See you in the next video.